Kari from Red Curtain Addict, and I'm really excited to see you this evening for a behind-the-curtain look at a brand new virtual series that is premiering this week called Tales from a Safe Distance, that features 10 world premiere one-act operas created by 10 creative teams and 9 independent opera companies across the United States, where together they are known as the Decameron Opera Coalition. It sounds like a lot of different elements involved, so many different pieces to make this work, especially now that we are in quarantine, working primarily digitally. So I've invited 3, not just one, but 3 different guests tonight for our first group discussion on Behind the Curtain. I'm going to invite Maria, the lead producer, Luca, who is one of the incredible bass-baritones that will be performing in this production, and Matt, who is a librettist who helped create the storyline of this opera, and we're going to learn a little bit more about that in a bit. Before I welcome all 3 of them on, I want to give you a peek into what this looks like and some of those exciting highlights. Let's take a look. Oh my gosh, it looks so much fun. I'm really excited to have our guests stream in with me tonight, which is Luca, Maria, and Matt. You guys, it's great to see you all.
Great to be here, Kari.
Thank you for having us.
Absolutely. It's such a cool thing that we're all kind of all over the world. Matt, you're in Chicago. Maria, you're in Pittsburgh. Luca, you're in Barcelona. And I'm here in Napa just trying to get through this whole thing with some wine, you know? Great to see you. And this is a fun opportunity, I think, that we're able to do now that things are going virtual more than ever, which I think really kind of leads us into this virtual experience that I'm so excited to talk to you guys more about. Maria, I wanted to actually start with you because you are one of the lead producers for this and really helping coordinate and looking how this will work, both for the audience but for the artists. And I'm curious, this doesn't really happen to have so many operas, independent opera companies coming together for one collaboration. How did this idea come about, and what are some of the highlights that have been happening to make it work out for this new series?
Sure. Well, it really goes back to the end of March, which really isn't that long ago when you think about it, but it feels like a decade ago in Corona time, I guess. But I was working with Matt Boresi and Peter Hilliard on a different project. We were supposed to do a piece of theirs in April, which of course had to be postponed. And I was involved in a lot of arts conversations about, what will opera look like? What can opera look like in this time? And so I asked them, they're very creative people. And I said, what do you think? You've got to have some good ideas. What would opera look like in 6 months? And I got an email the very next day, and they said, can you hop on a Zoom call? We have an idea. And they talked about the Decameron, Boccaccio's Decameron, which I confess I was only a little bit familiar with. And the story of 10 people who were in quarantine outside of Florence in the Black Plague, and how relevant that felt to our current situation. Back then, at the end of March, we were all in a very severe state of lockdown, and it just felt incredibly relevant and timeless as well as timely. And that's what I really loved about the project. And the other piece of this from Peter and Matt was that this could involve a number of different companies. They had worked with a lot of small, fantastic companies from around the country. And wouldn't it be great if we could work together on a project that was new and that took opera forward in this time, instead of sort of treading water. So that was the idea, and so we organically grew this team of producers, 9 companies. Urban Arias in Washington, D.C., Lyric Opera of the North in Duluth, Minnesota were some of the first ones aboard. We have companies from New York to Fargo, North Dakota to Houston, Texas. It's a wonderful group of partners. And we've been meeting weekly now for the last several months to make this all happen in such a short amount of time, really. So each company has their own mini opera, about a 10-minute opera that is one of the stories in our contemporary Decameron. So there will be essentially 10 world premieres as a part of this project, not one story from each company, and then the wraparound story that Peter and Matt have written that ties the whole thing together.
Oh my gosh, I have to applaud you. I cannot believe this came together just since March. This is a huge, huge project just in general, and also just, you know, we can't really sit in the same room with each other to roundtable it, right? And talk out our feelings and kind of feed off of each other's energy. It's all digital now. So wow, what a really great, I mean, I'm sure it took a lot of diligence and, you know, really perseverance to make sure that, you know, this communicated and this one overarching story was clear coming out through all these different partnerships.
It really feels like it was longer than 6 months, but I think we were all really excited about the idea, and we were all kind of figuring out how to do this. This is not something, we kept looking for comparable projects that were like this, and we couldn't find any where each you know, there have been massive co-commissions that have happened before, but usually that's one creative team, whereas this project has 10 creative teams. So it's musically really diverse, it's visually very interesting and varied, and that's really what we all loved about the idea and wanted to push it forward.
So awesome. Well, Luca, I'm really excited to see you, and I wanted you to join us to talk a little bit more about your role. It's been a while since we've seen each other last. I think it was in New York City right before Broadway closed down and a lot of those arts theaters closed, and we were in a cafe drinking coffee. Remember how that used to look?
Yes, absolutely. Well, before I start talking about the role, I have to say I am blown away by Peter, Matt, Maria, because I had no idea. When they asked, I thought it would be a small aria, like 2 pages maximum, and then here it comes a full opera. I couldn't believe it. And the thing is this: it's very hard because you know, you work with you learn it, you work with your coach, and then you have a first day of rehearsal and you have a conversation and you try to understand and you sing it through and somebody gives you some ideas. Here it was like, okay, here's the music, good luck. And pretty much, right? And you know, it was the week before I was supposed to come to Barcelona for Don Giovanni. So I was, you know, trying to go back in a kind of respectable shape after 6 months without singing. And I had to learn this. And the crazy thing is that here in Barcelona, we have a schedule which is 11 to 2, 4 to 7. So I can't record in the middle of the rehearsal, and at the end of the evening, I would come home, change, try to record. But you know, it's hard. It's hard because I didn't realize how hard it is to record yourself on an iPhone, and I didn't realize how, like, if I'm not mistaken, his name is Jonathan Goff, who did King George for Hamilton, how much I spit while I'm singing. And so a lot of times I was recording, it was going great, and all of a sudden something that was not supposed to be there appeared on the screen, and I had to start from the beginning. And so I thought, oh, you know, I have 2 hours. In fact, it's not time at all. It's really an incredible amount of work, and I have to tell you, I cannot wait to see the end result, because I don't know how you guys do it. I don't know how you're going to put all this together. I think I have an incredible amount of respect for you for coming up with this, because it's not just, I really thought it was like a long song. It's a full full size opera. It's brilliant. So I'm playing Dino, who is the host of the Zoom call, and I'm supposedly to be Italian. I'm in Barcelona, but whatever. Let's say I'm in Italy, and I'm reaching out to all the friends that I met when I was in Florence, and we were there for different reasons, and we haven't seen each other for a very long time. And the idea is that I'm a little bit on the tired side because, as you know, Italy started the lockdown before everybody else. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody, but on the same time, I'm also tired of having to meet people via internet and via computer. And my favorite part is the fact that my entrance starts with me preparing a gin and tonic, which is a little bit, I think, what we all did to get through this really hard period. But I have to say, watch it. It is the amount of work that they put into this is mind blowing. I could never. I'm beyond impressed, and congratulations, really, Matt, Peter, and Maria for putting up this, because it's beyond unbelievable, really.
That's awesome. Thank you, Luca. I mean, you're right. It's a whole different. Performing live, you're just giving it your all in that moment, right? You may be spitting, but it's not really about that. It's not really about always the appearance.
Also,
but when you're video and you're seeing yourself, you're like, wait a minute, why did I do
I have
that?
to say, even when you do a TV recording, it's far away. But the phone is really here, so you see the sweat, and you say, oh, and then you have a long note, and all of a sudden you're becoming red, and you're like, everybody's going to say he can't sing anymore because look, he's coming red. You're like, I'm holding the D for 5 bars. Give me a break. It's really, and I remember I did, but even there is one little thing. I swear to you, there is one scene where I say one little thing, which is let's meet her. That's it. And then I watch and I listen. I think I did 7 takes. It's crazy. I'm serious. It is an incredible amount of work, really.
I bet it's truly humbling too of an experience to watch yourself, right? And to reflect on, how you're delivering things. And we are always our biggest critics, right? And
yeah, I do not mention that to them, because I was like, oh, I'm sending something tomorrow. And then I will record 2 hours, and of the 2 hours, there will be like 5 minutes ready. And I'm like, okay, let's try again tomorrow. So don't even mention this. It's crazy.
It is crazy. Well, tell us about this, the story that the role that you play within this series. What does the kind of music look like?
So the music, it's melodic, but it's witty. There is sense of humor. There are jokes musically, and not just with the words, but also musically. And I can talk about my music, because the crazy thing about this project is that I got the bass of the orchestra and the beating time. So this is pretty much what I had to make sure that it was the right pitch and I was not schlepping, which is okay when you have a conductor who tells you, okay, do a rallentando, we'll wait for you. But when there's no conductor and you only hear tick, 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 you have if you have very little flexibility. And if you do some allargando and some rubati, you better catch up, because you don't want to destroy the precision of the measure, so that I don't want to make the life of the person putting all this together hell. And so it's really has been, for me, the role is great, because it's a mixture of romantic and a little bit tired and hopeful, and as a little bit of everything. Also a little bit cynical, and a little bit a joke here and there, which is very close to my I would say character, because I can be very dry when it comes to jokes, and so I enjoyed it very much. And if I have to say, my two best moment for me is the opening number. I think the opening number is absolutely brilliant. There is a unisono, so we all sing the same, like a chorus. Sorry, better, a chorus where we talks about. Can I say it, Maria? Boxes, okay, boxes, and it's absolutely hilarious and brilliant. And there are two measures where something special has to happen, and it took me forever. I don't know if you probably you understand. I don't wanna say much, but it's really the first number for me. It's absolutely brilliant, and I have to say the last number, the closing number, is also unbelievable, because it reminds me of this big scene. If I'm not mistaken, is "Make My Garden Grow." Correct?
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. It reminds me of that piece. It is great music. It's beautiful, and I have to tell you, I was studying in Vienna before coming here, and there is when we all start singing in melody, I almost teared up, because I haven't learned and made music with anybody for such a long time, and all of a sudden I really realized that I missed it. I mean, I always knew, but until you do it and you had to learn it, and it was new, it's beautiful, but it's also thoughtful and deep. And this is what I think is amazing, how in such a short amount of time you managed to come up with such an amazing piece, really.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, Matt, let's actually jump to you, because I want to hear more about your role within this, because you were helping kind of create this piece for Luca. So Matt, you're actually a librettist, and for those that are, maybe not familiar with the term, what does that mean? And can you talk a little bit more about that?
Certainly. Well, in the simplest terms, the librettist writes the words to the opera. And a libretto is a little book. And historically, in opera, before super titles and subtitles and titles on an LED screen on the back of the chairs, when you walked into the opera house, you would purchase a little book that had the words to the opera in it so that you could follow along. So while, a play has a playwright, and a musical has usually a lyricist and a book writer, the script writer and the songwriter, sometimes the same person, sometimes differently. In an opera, the lyrics never stop. It's all the lyrics, or it's all the play. So the librettist writes the words.
Amazing. I think that's such an interesting role. And I'm always really curious. We've talked to a few composers of how they create the music, but for a librettist, does the words, or for this particular project, did the words come first, or the music? And were you inspired by the music or the person that you were writing for?
It depends on the writing team. Peter and I have been working together for many years now, Peter Hilliard. So we usually sit down and block out the big beats and the theme. Like, what are we writing? Who are we writing? What are we writing? What are we trying to say? And are there numbers? Like, is this a choral number? Sometimes operas burble along and don't really land in an aria, and some do. And we tend to write numbers. So we wanted something that had, because it would be 4 nights in many operas, we wanted something, some weight on the ends to give it some shape, some bookends. So we wanted a true opening number. So once we decided that, and the sentiment that we wanted, and tonally, there's a delicate, we're trying to thread a needle about the COVID era and our response to it, because it's a dire time. It's a dangerous time. But it is not a time absent of joy and love and life. So to write, to have a message ultimately that says we are living in dangerous times and awful things are happening to us, but we also have a moment to slow down and live and love and make art. We wanted a message that was hopeful, but not, Panglossian over a dark time. I had, before I met Luca, I'd spoken to some Italian relatives of mine in Italy, asking them, because of course Italy was further along in the COVID experience when it started to strike in the United States. And so I checked on them. How are you? And how does one live through this? And they had particularly a cousin, Costanza Boresi in Bologna, had said, this is a nightmare, but one must count one's blessings and look at how the time it gives you to make art, spend time with your loved ones and sing and play cards and pray. And when we met Luca, then before he had read the script, before he read the libretto or heard the score, his sentiment about his experience in COVID was so similar. And he emanates a sense of warmth and humor with that little bit of realism and cynicism. And I thought, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is his personal vibration is the tone that we want to get across and the message that we want to get across. And once that marriage was there, now, unfortunately for him, it made the show longer, because as soon as we met him, we thought we got to write more. there was more to do. But that's what we've set out to do. And we certainly hope we've done it.
100%. Wow, that's really interesting to kind of. It seemed like you did a lot of research on, how are people feeling from not where I am personally, but all over the world, because it has affected countries differently. And it's really, really great that really was already in Luca's personal storyline. So I'm curious. You're talking about Luca's particular piece. How did you really make sure that the story was overarching, right? That you mentioned there's several different nights that we get to tune in, but there is these bookend pieces that kind of bring it together. What was like the overarching story that we should be looking out for as an audience?
Well, we have to thank Boccaccio for writing such an eclectic piece in the 14th century. I mean, that piece tonally is all over the place in the very best way. There's 100 stories in the Decameron. We've taken it down to 10. But they are stories of love and sex and death and horror, and there's body comedy and there's heartbreak. So we knew that the different creative teams would have some license to impart the tone that they wanted and have a lot of license on what their message could be. We wrote some sample treatments of what some of the internal operas could be, which they could choose to set, or they could use those as inspiration and go off on their own. And they truly are eclectic sonically, of course, because there's electronica and rap and tonal things and atonal things and a cappella, but also in their messages. Anything Boccaccio has erected a large enough tent that people can say what they want to say about life in these times. And truly, we created a space where art can respond to the times. So then it was the task upon Peter and I was to be able to bookend those without stepping on what they wanted to do. So we were given, I mean, what a treat. We were given one singer from each of the operas, and they're all on the Zoom call with Luca's character. So just like in the Decameron, to get through the times, they decide to tell stories, maybe true stories, maybe fibs, maybe exaggerated, maybe entirely fictional, but each singer gets a turn, and their turn is that individual opera. So Peter and I were able to say something larger about the experience of being in lockdown and the boredom versus the opportunity versus the fear versus the stress. And then particular facets of the experience can be mined by each of the operas.
Matt, that's so interesting. And I think, what you're doing here is really special because what you're saying is the art is reflecting current times. And I think that really kind of not only helps the current audience deal with it, right? But it's almost a stamp in time that we can look back on in the future and say, oh my gosh, do you remember when? And it's almost this little kind of bookmark of the time of 2020 and what we were all going through. And it's something we can reference in the future.
Well, thank you. That's why it's been so special to work with a national and an international, of course, cohort of artists, because we're really talking about the entire human experience right now and not just a writer or a city.
Yeah. Okay, so my next question is actually for all of you. I want to hear, for the audience tuning in tonight, this is a brand new experience. We don't really have a ton of visuals. We're seeing a little bit in here throughout, some B-roll. But what are some of your favorite highlights that the audience should look out for from a production perspective, an artist perspective, and writing those words to tell this story? I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I think it's the eclecticism that is my favorite part. If there's a piece that doesn't sit well with you, wait a few minutes, because you'll get, it's like the weather in Chicago. If you don't like it, wait a few minutes and it'll change. There are pieces that are farces that are filmed straight ahead and people running in and out of rooms in actual space. There are pieces that are quite abstract that are in sort of a beautiful visual, ever-changing landscape. There are pieces that are much like music videos with quick cuts. The very first piece interacts with watercolor painting, so the people move within watercolor. Maria's company's piece, Resonance Works piece, is entirely animated. It's all illustrations. And the piece that follows is a music video that deals with, it's based on a tale from the Decameron about piracy, but it's set in Chicago. And so it explores water in Chicago. And some of it was filmed under Lake Michigan with a GoPro camera. So there's been a lot of exploration and experimentation that you'll get to experience.
Wow, that is diverse. That's crazy. I'm so excited. What about you, Maria?
I have to echo a little bit what Matt is saying, that one of the most exciting things about this is the myriad of visual experiences that you will have and musical experiences. I think that there's a lot of different composers that are represented in all of the different companies. Some that are very, very established, like Michael Ching, and others that are a lot younger and very exciting new voices in music. I'm very much looking forward to the first story, as Matt referenced, which is called Everything Comes to a Head. And it has lots of wonderful plant puns in there, in addition to the animation of the beautiful paintings that they've interacted. There's real people amidst these paintings. And then you go a couple nights later and we have a story from an opera theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which takes on the very serious topic of domestic violence in times of quarantine. And they have partnered with women's advocates in Minneapolis to tell a story about somebody who's in an abusive situation, and hopefully shedding some light on those situations. So we really run the gamut. Matt mentioned I love our piece, which is called Sourdough Rise Up, but it actually is very philosophical at the end. It is witty, and Gilda Lyons was the composer for ours, and it looks beautiful with fantastic illustrations. And our three singers are in 3 different states, so all of these pieces were created and filmed in such different ways that there's highlights anywhere you look.
Wow, so incredible. Luca, what about your perspective as an artist in this?
Well, I can tell you that one line in the last scene is my favorite part of this. If I can, because I can only talk about my part, to be honest, right? I had to sing everything by myself, and so I cannot talk about, about this experience of working with other people, unfortunately, because was just me, my iPhone, and trying to record it as well, and to not just sing in the note, but try to also act it. And this is really challenging, to be able to act it when you are by yourself facing a camera, because sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's too little, and you need to. And never I missed a director as much as in the last week. Normally I'm like, whatever, this is Don Giovanni, I have some strong ideas about it, you tell me where to go. But in this case, I tell you, we should have had at least a week of rehearsal, because it's really a completely different medium, totally different way of making music, and the visual part, the audio, but the visual part especially. But I have to say, there is one thing that I find absolutely brilliant in the libretto, which says boredom can be beautiful, which I believe it's a must these days, because I think through boredom, you find out what you actually want to really do. And when you are busy, and you spend so much time watching things, you have very little time to think and to actually find out what is that you want. So I have to say, I hope people take this away from them, that sometimes doing nothing and contemplating and listening to what your heart and your soul tells you is the best solution to deal with something as challenging as this pandemic has been.
100%. I have to agree with that. I've found myself having the best reflective moments during this COVID when the phone is off, when I'm just outside listening to the birds or taking a walk. And I hadn't had the chance to do that with the normal everyday life, chasing the next thing, working on the next project. And so that it has brought, that sense of reflection, I think, to a lot of us that have gone through COVID-19 and this, kind of being isolated. But sometimes isolation helps you kind of reflect, and it's been a great thing. So I'm looking forward to seeing that in your piece. Luca, I'm curious, you talked about preparation for this and how visually this has been very challenging because you haven't really thought about having to do this for an iPhone that's right up in your face, right? Or
yes.
What it look like in the sweat and all that good stuff. I'm curious around the audio of how you have, prepared for this. Usually in an opera house, you're projecting to the very back of the opera house. For here, right?
That's that was the challenge. That's why where I can tell, because I think honesty is the best tool. That's where the first time I recorded, I got so tired because I was singing. I tried to feel, a big house, and then my wife was behind. She's like, we are in the living room. You don't try. I mean, I'm like 2 meters away from you.
Yeah, Luca.
The microphone will pick your voice. Just relax. And I was like, really? And you could see, the veins and me going over. And it's true. It is a completely different media. I mean, it's another way of singing. And this is, I know that there are colleagues who are fantastic at this, who can adapt. But in my case, it's always been challenging for me. And I always, when I do recordings, say, can you, to the producer, can you try to get what you need without changing my way of singing? Because I don't know, I don't know how to fix it. And it's really a completely different, I guess that for a pop artist to record and to use the voice is a completely different universe. And that for me was really the audio part at the beginning, especially was like, okay, calm down, and I could then, after one or two take, I could relax and say, okay, I don't have to give it all, and I can focus, on the long phrase instead of this and that. And this was really a process. That's why I hoped, I wish we had like a Zoom call with everybody where there was a director saying, look, we tested this, don't sing too much, it's too loud, and this kind of stuff, because you just don't know.
Yeah, and it's almost tough to have that because you guys are a pioneer in this space. There isn't like okay, so here's your quick tips.
The learning curve on everything has been so profound, which is why, it's been so hard for us. And we've done it, opera tends to move at a glacial pace as far as producing things, and what you're singing years out. And suddenly we go from conception to premiere in 6 months, and everyone is wearing new hats. Suddenly the librettists are screenwriters. Suddenly the conductors are editors. Suddenly the directors are filmmakers, and the singers are filmmakers, and the singers are directors, and the singers are hair and makeup. Suddenly Luca is doing what a dozen people may be flurrying around him and doing. Plus, we're doing it differently. Instead of singing over an enormous orchestra into a multi-thousand seat house, he's singing to a tiny microphone inches away. And the acting as well has to come down to this, like to TV acting. And this is not necessarily some people on the teams. There's at least 86 artists working on this project altogether. Some had experience in film and in television and so forth. Largely, we're all built for the operatic stage, and this is quite different from that. So much, much, much learning for everybody all the time, and so many hats to be worn.
Yeah, it's a lot of learning, but also a lot of appreciation, right? For the people that you're like, oh man, I don't need a director for this. I've got it. And it's like, Luca's like, man, I wish I had one. I really, in seeing this, I know you've loved working with your directors as well, but all those different components that happen within a live performance that we're not able to get and experience, you're just like, wow. And to your point, Matt, an appreciation for people who create different types of forms of art, like the hip hop videos you're seeing on the video screen. Just now that you have a taste of that. Luca, were you going to say something?
When you do, let's say, a repertoire production, you always say, oh, let's cut rehearsal period. Come on, it's too long. This, when you do world premieres, I'm always like, oh, I need an extra week. Oh, it's always like, let's add some more rehearsal. And I did a world premiere in Houston for the first time, the Phoenix, and it was like 6.5 weeks of rehearsal. And I went like, I needed every single day, because the difference is it's a new language and you need time to learn it. It just is a new language. The music composed is a new language, the style, and also the visual here was incredible. I could have tried to record for an entire week before I sent something, because it's really a completely different world. And so it is not easy. I tell you, I can imagine the results is going to be amazing. Amazing is going to be, I can tell you. I don't know how you do it, I tell you, because it's challenging to be in tempo with the orchestra here and the beat on this side is already challenging that. So imagine, I don't know how you do it, guys. Anyway.
Maria, maybe let's skip to you actually and talk to you about how does it come together when you get all these pieces of media, and Matt, when you get all these pieces of media and now you're creating this series that's just coming up for us to enjoy as an audience, what are the steps to getting those edits and sounds to make it feel and appear and sound comprehensive and cohesive?
Sure. Well, the individual stories, as they were produced by our partner companies, they were all assembled in very, very different ways. Some companies actually had all of their singers in the same city, and they hired, they had a camera crew, and they were able to still very safely, film themselves in that way. So there's some where that was actually the case, but a lot of them were not. There were some companies where they shipped equipment from city to city. A lot of singers performed in front of green screens, and then they submit audio and video of themselves, and that goes to an audio engineer and a video editor, who sometimes there is a seasoned professional, and sometimes it's one of us wearing multiple hats to put all of that together. And so the episodes themselves, or the chapters themselves, were done in all kinds of different ways. But the frame story, the wraparound story that Luca's a part of, we have 10 singers who are all filming themselves and recording themselves on all kinds of different devices, lots of iPhones, some USB microphones, some other kinds of things. And then they sent recordings, video and audio recordings. Some of them are the same, some send separate audio and video. We have an amazing video director and producer, Kathy Whitman of Ball Square Films in Boston, Massachusetts, who is really spearheading all of this. We have an amazing audio engineer, Christian Chechko, who's here in Pittsburgh, who somehow through crazy magic makes all these singers sound like they're in the same room instead of all over the world, and with all these different inputs. So there are some really seasoned, fabulous professionals that are working on that side of it, and it is a great challenge, and because not everybody is used to doing this, and sometimes certain folks are great at recording, and some it's the first time they've done it, and there's been a lot of challenges in that regard, but absolutely. Absolutely. And we're all learning. We're all constant, as Matt said. The learning curve on this was just incredible. It continues to be.
Yeah, Matt, what would you say, if you're going to hand the playbook to someone else, what maybe would be some of those tips, now that you've gone through all of this, for those new opera companies or symphonies or jazz or wanting to produce something similar, what would you say maybe a get at the head of the curve tip would be?
Yeah, I've been saying as soon as we're finished with this, we'll know how to start. It's do give yourselves time. Perhaps 6 months from conception to premiere is a little quick. For our part with the frame piece, take nothing for granted. There's so much that is done in table work early in a process in a new work, where you sit down at the table and you say, who are all these characters and how do they know one another and what time is it? If Luca's in Italy on this call and we know it's past his bedtime, who's in California? Who's in Boston? What's the outside their window? What's the temperature for all these people, right? And these things get worked out in the room early in the process when there's rooms in the process. So certainly take nothing for granted and give yourself lead time to think about those things. Maria, you've really been a huge part of the synthesis of this as well. What are your words of wisdom for people foolish enough to do this down the line?
I think the biggest advice is work with a team of people that you really love and appreciate and trust and respect. That is one of the biggest things that has made this happen at all, is our amazing team of producers and partners in this. We've mentioned a couple of them, but we've 9 companies. Peter and Matt, of course, have been involved in everything, but the 9 companies that have been involved: Sarah Lawrence from Lyric Opera of the North, Bob Wood at Urban Arias, Eiki Isamura at Opera in the Heights in Houston, David Hamilton at Fargo Moorhead Opera, Kirsten Scott and Letizia Ruccolo of Bear Opera of New York City, but both of them aren't in New York. They're in Europe right now. One's in the UK and one is, I don't know where Letizia is. She's somewhere else every day I check. Chicago Fringe Opera, George, Laura, and Kathy, Jill, Anna, and Danny from Milwaukee Opera Theater, and Kelly Turpin of an opera theater in Minneapolis. We have an amazing team of people, and we were all making this up as we went along. We were all figuring out what the steps needed to be. And a lot of folks would say that 9 partners, there's a lot of cats to herd, but not these 9 partners. So I think step 1 is have a partnership of people that you really love working with and that you trust.
Amongst that plurality of artists, opera has done some soul searching lately about diversity and representation, and how the artists backstage, creative artists on stage, could better reflect the world that we live in and the country that we live in. The number of female composers, of which there have been far too few in the history of opera, the number of female composers on this project is profound, as are that we have creative artists of color. The cast itself across the pieces is as diverse as the cities and the cultures and places that we are from. And it's something that we're extremely proud of. So you are seeing a piece of art that reacts to the moment and that is produced by a plurality of people to better reflect who is experiencing this moment.
Wow. I could say that female composers are the majority.
Really? That doesn't happen too often. I mean, yeah, look, I'm applauding with.
When does it happen? And female producers.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just have to say 2 things, if I can say. I was asked for by a very young singer, a girl, 20 years old from Brazil. Said, so what do you see? How do you see opera for a black girl? And I said, that's a very interesting question, because I said the funny thing is, it's girls in opera, despite the fact that most of the time are very courageous, very brave, and very modern, are always seen through the eyes of a man. So it's time to see. It's time to start seeing a woman through the eyes of a woman, because we have seen, throughout history, unfortunately, the majority of composers were men, and so the reaction and the way that they behaved is still through the eyes of a man. But I wanted to say one thing. For the amazing thing about this project, I find that there is so much artistic risk, and I think without it, we are lost. We are lost. And I think it's amazing that they decide to do this. It's amazing that they put this together, and I am pretty sure that nobody, no painter, no opera composer, no sculptor were 100% happy with the first thing that they ever created. But I have to say, chapeau to create this, because it's new, it speaks to the time, it's right for the time, and it's taking advantage of all the medium that we have, trying to make opera relevant with modern music. So I am blown away by the commitment and then the minds that put this together.
That's awesome, Luca. Maria, Matt, what do you guys think about that? It's pretty cool to be pioneers in this space. And to Luca's point, you never know what's next with this. You may not, there's a lot of flaws or maybe some hurdles that you've had to do, but the reward in it at the end is significant, because you're charting out a new territory for other art organizations, and you're also learning how to take that risk and what you can do with it, right? Which is going to help the next generation of artists reinvent opera, which I think is really, really exciting in the way that audiences experience it.
It has been an incredibly soulful experience and a wonderful way to pass, if one must pass through a global pandemic, to do it working with this amazing group of artists and sharing our experiences through our art. And getting to work with Luca Pisaroni is no small thing either. It has been just an amazing, soulful experience. And we're so glad that there is a product to come out of it that we can share with other people, because the process itself has been such a joy.
I can echo that. The process has been a joy. I keep saying to Matt and Peter, I said, my pandemic would have been a lot more boring without them. And I think that I have certainly appreciated having such purpose for these last 6 months, to have something that we really believed in, and that, at a certain point, we kind of felt like it was important, and we could tell, and we're however it was going to go, it felt important, and the voices that we're giving a moment to, in terms of the creators, the composers, the librettists, the singers, the companies. The companies involved are not the largest companies in America. I'm the third producer of opera in my city. We're really quite tiny, but together we can move mountains, it seems, and that has been really the most powerful thing, I think.
You guys, I got goosebumps over here. I'm almost in tears because this is so cool. And
I just think when they're gonna win a Grammy for a 2-hour opera, they are gonna look back at this and say, "You see, it was the beginning of something." So that's great.
That is awesome. Well, I absolutely cannot wait to see this myself. I bought my tickets and I'm ready to go. Maria, Matt, Luca, if the audience is going to be tuning in very soon. Maria, how do people tune in, and what is the cadence for these shows? And do we get access to all of the tickets at once for each one, or do we kind of wait for each weekend?
This is a really good question. We've tried to make it as easy as possible. You buy one ticket and it gives you access to the whole thing. And we have a wonderful website. You can go to the website and learn about each story, each creative team that made those stories. There's bios of all of those people, but you buy one ticket, and we are releasing the episodes. There are 4 episodes. They're being released on Fridays in October. So October 9, 16, 23rd, and 30th. But the whole piece will be available online through the end of the year. So it'll be available on demand, but we really hope that folks will engage with us on the premiere nights. We're having special events on all of the premiere nights. There's on this Friday, October 9, there's a pre-show special interview section on 360 of Opera. And then after every episode, there's a link you click, you watch the episode, and then you click, and there will be a live stream of the producers and artists that were involved in that episode. So the first episode is Lyric Opera of the North and Bear Opera from New York City, and you'll get to talk with those artists, there's chat features, so you can send your questions. We hope people will send their comments and questions, and the artists can respond in real time. And then it's really like an event. You can watch it all anytime. Then we hope you'll binge it all many times in the future, catch all the things that you missed the first time. But we hope everybody will engage with us on the premiere nights. We want to virtually see you all.
Absolutely. It's going to be fun to kind of take it chapter by chapter. I think some of the best shows that I've ever tuned in, you kind of had to wait for the next one, like, right? It's not always, you can't just binge watch it, but then later you can. So, which is really, really great to see. And maybe sometimes it's good to take it chapter by chapter and see what it is for what it is. And then you can rewatch it and see it as a full story, which I think is really, really cool. Well, I'm really excited, you guys. You have to tune in for this. Check out their website to see more. Check out redcurtainact.com. We'll have some more information about where you can get those tickets and tune in and meet these artists. You guys, thank you so much for tuning in with me tonight from all over the world. I really appreciate it. It's good to see each one of you.
Thank you
for having us
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to see some of our previous episodes from Red Curtain Addict, you can check those out at redcurtainaddict.com. You guys, we will see you next time.
Perish those who win for my